Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing a story that feels like something out of a thriller, betrayal, deception, and the fight for survival. So grab some popcorn and settle in, because this is one wild ride. Thought all started a few years ago when my mom passed away unexpectedly. I was just a kid then, only 12 years old. The day I lost her, my world shattered. I remember the funeral vividly, the cold air, the somber faces, and the way the world felt heavy on my shoulders. I could still hear my relatives whispering, "He'll be fine," but deep down I knew I was far from fine. I felt like a ship lost at sea, drifting without direction. My dad struggled after her death. He was lost, and in his vulnerability, he didn't take long to find solace in someone else, my stepmom, Lisa. Initially, she seemed charming, a bright spot in my otherwise dim world. "We'll be a family again," she said, her smile radiant. But as time passed, I began to see her true colors. Lisa had two kids of her own, Ryan and Emily, who barely tolerated my existence. From the moment Lisa moved in, my life turned into a nightmare. She treated me like an outsider, often belittling me in front of Ryan and Emily. "You're just a charity case," she would say, her voice laced with contempt. "Why don't you just go back to your dead mom?" Ryan would sneer, his eyes filled with malice. Emily would chime in, "Yeah, maybe she still give you a better life than this pathetic one." Their insults cut deep, and I longed for my dad to stand up for me, but he was often too busy trying to keep the peace. Now, let's not fight," he would say, attempting to diffuse the tension. I felt a wave of resentment wash over me. He didn't see how they were treating me, or maybe he just chose to ignore it. Then came the day that changed everything. I received a letter from my grandfather's lawyer saying that the house we lived in, the one where I had grown up, had been left to me in his will. I was stunned. I had always known my grandfather loved me, but I never imagined he would leave me a house. When I shared the news, my dad's face turned pale. "What do you mean? The house is yours?" Lisa shrieked, her voice rising. "That's not fair. We've been living here." Ryan and Emily exchanged glances filled with anger and jealousy. "You can't keep all that for yourself," Ryan yelled. "We're family too," Emily added, her voice dripping with envy. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. Fast forward a few years, and I was now 20 years old. My dad had become increasingly frail, and tragedy struck when he fell seriously ill. It was heart-wrenching to see him in that hospital bed, the man who once seemed invincible now reduced to a shadow of himself. "Dad, please, get better," I pleaded, holding his hand tightly, but he just smiled weakly, the sparkle in his eyes dimming. In his final days, he called me to his side, gasping for breath. "Son, I need you to promise me something," he rasped. "Let Lisa and the kids live in the house. They need stability." My heart sank. "But Dad, they treat me like a stranger," I protested, my voice cracking with emotion. But looking into his eyes, I saw desperation. I couldn't deny him this last wish. "Okay, Dad, I'll let them stay," I whispered, feeling a weight settle on my chest. He passed away shortly after, leaving me with a bitter pill to swallow. I allowed Lisa and the kids to live in the house, but the mistreatment only escalated. They were relentless, throwing insults my way, making snide comments about my inheritance. "Enjoy living off your dead grandfather's money, loser," Emily would say as I walked past her, a smirk plastered on her face. "You don't deserve that house," Ryan would sneer, his eyes glinting with malice. "You're just a pathetic little boy who thinks he's something special," Lisa would add, her voice dripping with venom. I was constantly on edge, feeling like a stranger in my own home. One fateful evening, I got home from work earlier than usual. I was tired, but relieved to be in my own space. As I entered the house, I could hear Lisa and the kids laughing from the living room. I didn't want to interrupt, so I headed to the kitchen for a snack when I heard hushed voices coming from the living room. Curiosity piqued, I crept closer to the door and strained to listen. What I heard shook me to my core. "We just need to loosen the brakes on his car before he leaves for that meeting next week," Lisa said calmly, as if she were discussing dinner plans. My heart raced and I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. "Are you sure it'll work?" Ryan asked, his voice filled with eagerness. "Yeah, it's foolproof. He won't see it coming," she replied, her tone chilling. Emily was also sitting there nodding along. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My mind raced with possibilities. They were actually planning to kill me? I needed to act fast. I called my friend Mike, a police officer, and told him everything. "You need to install a camera, one that records sound too. We need proof," he advised, his voice serious. Over the next few days, I sneaked around the house, setting up cameras in strategic locations. Every conversation, every cruel word was captured. One day, I caught Ryan in the act, loosening the brake lines on my car. I was shocked when I was watching it on my phone. I quickly sent that video to Mike. He told, "That's a really good proof, man." My heart sank, but I felt a flicker of hope. I had the evidence I needed. Mike had told me to play it cool, so I acted like everything was normal. I'd walk into the living room and casually join their conversations. "What's everyone talking about?" I'd ask, feigning ignorance. Lisa would look at me, her eyes narrowing. "Just family stuff," she'd say, her voice dripping with sarcasm. I could see the tension growing, but I kept my cool. As the week progressed, I noticed that Lisa and the kids were acting unusually nice to me. "Hey, we were thinking of ordering pizza tonight. Want to join?" Emily asked, her smile almost too sweet to be genuine. "Sure," I replied cautiously, my guard still up. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were plotting something. The day of the meeting arrived. I was anxious but determined to stay alert. Lisa and Ryan were overly nice, almost suspiciously so. "You'll do great, buddy," Ryan said with a fake smile. I felt a chill run down my spine. As I drove my car, I recalled the recordings and felt a rush of adrenaline. I stopped at a corner, took a deep breath, and carefully drove away, determined to stay aware of my surroundings. Later that evening, Mike showed up at my house, dressed in full uniform. My heart raced. I knew this was the moment. "I'm sorry to inform you, but there's been an accident. Your son didn't make it," he told Lisa and Ryan, his voice steady but filled with empathy. "It seems like brake failure was the cause, but we're still investigating." The fake tears and sobs erupted from Lisa and Ryan. As they entered the room, I stepped forward, a smirk playing on my lips. "Surprise!" I exclaimed, watching their faces drain of color. "I'm very much alive." The shock was palpable. Mike and the other officers stepped in, and before they could comprehend what was happening, they were handcuffed. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder," Mike stated, showing them the recordings from the cameras. Lisa's face turned ashen as the evidence played back the chilling words they had spoken. "You thought you could get away with it, didn't you?" I said, my voice steady. "You thought I was just going to disappear." Emily was also caught after a while. At the trial, Lisa and Ryan pleaded with me, their eyes filled with desperation. "We're sorry. We never meant for it to go this far," they cried. I felt no sympathy. "You don't get to decide the value of my life," I replied coldly. "You chose greed over family." The judge handed down the sentence, 25 years in prison. I realized that, despite everything, I had survived. I had fought back against the darkness that had threatened to consume me. So, that's my story. It's hard to believe that the people closest to you can turn into your greatest enemies. But in the end, love and truth won over betrayal and greed. Thanks for listening. And remember, always trust your instincts. You never know when you might need to stand up for yourself. Until next time, take care.